Hello, I'm Shane Silsby, co-host of the Public Works podcast. Today on the special episode, we're talking with Tom Katroulis, the director of the Orange County Waste and Recycling Department. Tom does a great job running that department and making sure that they're compliant with all of the California and local laws and regulations. And he and his team were kind enough to take me on a tour of the Frank R. Bowerman landfill today. And we have some special video snippets at the end of our talk where you can hang around and watch some of those videos and some of the team members explaining what happens at the landfill. Thanks for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks.
Hello, welcome to the Public Works Podcast, where we highlight the people who keep our communities running and connected. I'm your host, Shane Silsby, and I'm joined today by Tom Katroulis, the director of Orange County's Waste and Recycling Department. His team oversees some of the most complex recycling and landfill operations in California, and they're leading efforts in sustainability, technology, and partnerships that we'll talk about today. We'll also explore where waste management is headed and how Orange County is setting the pace for that. So, Tom, thanks for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me and wanting to talk trash with me.
Yeah, talking trash. We always love to do that here with Tom, one of the experts in the community really about many things. But before we get into some technical questions, maybe just real quick, Tom, can you tell us about your journey? How you kind of got to your position? I know you have experience both in the private and public side. Share that a little bit.
Yes. And so I would say my journey is pretty unique in the sense of how I got here, as many of our journeys are unique. I started off in the industry working at a family business, actually picking up the waste on the truck as a kid, and went to a very large corporation, worked for them, and built out facilities, organic recycling facilities, material recovery facilities, built out recycling programs. And then I had this incredible opportunity to come work for the County of Orange. And so now I've been here 8 years at the county. It's been a phenomenal journey. I have an incredible team that are actually making things happen. And I'll say, when I say making things happen, related to infrastructure changes in the way we do things at the landfills, not only for regulatory and the use of best available technology, but also building out infrastructure for organic recycling. And so this has been a journey, not only for me, but for our entire team, and it's been incredible.
That's great. Thank you for that. And what I always like to, just fair warning, Tom and I did work together for a little bit at the county. And what I appreciated about you coming onto the team was that your private sector experience really, I think, gave the county a good opportunity to negotiate with our private partners, because you could speak that language and kind of negotiate those things a little more easily. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, well, it's a different perspective when you've actually run and operated the businesses, right? And so I've operated many businesses in the private sector, building out markets and market development and developing business. So coming to the county, and what we are is an enterprise fund, right? So we're separate from the general fund. So we are a government business. I said the key difference is that we're not here to make a profit. We're here to do just solely cost recovery associated with capital improvement projects, the cost to maintain, I'll say, compliance, which is a huge part of what we do. It's always been a complex system, right, to remain in compliance. It's even getting more complex with the change in regulations and laws and the limitations that are placed on industry. So we're having fun, I'll say, trying to keep up with it, but also to stay ahead and help shape it. And that we do that, I'll say, because of what we do as a landfill owner operator, right? So what the county OC Waste and Recycling does, we manage 3 large landfills, 20 closed landfills. We have now 3 compost facilities co-located at the landfills. We have 11 franchise agreements that we oversee for county and incorporated. And we also oversee household hazardous collection. We have 4 centers. And so it's a very dynamic and complex industry in what we're in, but we're also an enterprise fund, and our rates and how we get paid are through the tip fees and the services that we provide. And so we operate like a government business. What's made my life easier is that I'm not worried about hitting the profit margins or
The private sector.
The private sector challenges that come with it. And probably one of the reasons for my haircut today and growing up in the industry, but it's a great agency, a great county, and I'm enjoying it.
That's great. And you mentioned just real quick, tip fees, those are the trucks tipping the.
Yes, when waste comes in at the landfills, right, that's how we generate our revenue. So we have these rates associated with the tons coming in. So the truck gets weighed, we charge a fee for those tons that get buried because we then not only have to bury it, but we have to manage that waste into perpetuity. So we have to protect public health and the environment, and we do that by burying the waste, protecting groundwater, stormwater. We have to manage air quality by collecting the landfill gas and destroying it. And so we also take that landfill gas, which is a combination of methane and CO2, and we'll take it and we convert it to renewable energy, and we put that out on the grid.
And it's almost forever. I mean, could be 100 years. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a long time. So I appreciate that. And being an enterprise fund is always fun. I never got to do that fully in my career. I had pieces of that, but never had a full department because for our listeners, most government agency departments run off of some sort of a tax-based revenue. And so that creates a different issue. So good for you all and fun for you. You hit on a couple of these things, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about sustainability, circular economy. How's your department tackling sustainability and trying to integrate circular economy practices in what you do at your multiple landfill sites?
And so what really shapes our industry is the legislation and regulations associated with sustainability, right? So in the state of California, I'm going to go back a little ways, AB 939, which mandates 50% diversion from landfills since 1990. Fast forward to the implementation of SB 1383, which was adopted in 2016, went into effect in 2022, requires 75%, in the end, 75% of all organics diverted from landfilling. And the reason is because once you bury organics, it creates landfill gas. And under SB 1383, it's the Short-Lived Climate Pollutants Reduction Act, along with edible food recovery. And again, you can't judge a piece of legislation by its title. It's very complex, but the basics of it is to divert organic from the landfill. And the sustainability efforts behind that is that in Southern California, there is insufficient capacity for processing these organics. So what we did to augment that was we actually looked at our landfills because we had a lot of those organics coming in, green waste from all the residents were coming in at the tune of about 1,800 to 2,000 tons a day. And so we looked at our facilities and built compost facilities co-located at the landfills. So the material that was initially coming in was covering trash at the end of the day, called alternative daily cover. The regulations changed and said you can't do that anymore. Now under SB 1383, now you have to divert it and you can't bury it. So where's it going to go? So the infrastructure didn't exist. So what we did to help augment that is to put in composting infrastructure at each of our active landfills. And so,
Tom, are we looking at some of that operation right here?
This is an image of our Bee Canyon greenery here in Irvine today. This is the flagship for when we started our pilot. I said we have an incredible team that actually took this initiative, and now we have 3 very large composting facilities co-located at our landfills. Today happens to be the 5-year anniversary of our compost facility. I want to give a shout out to David Chu and the entire OC Waste and Recycling team for this journey. We're excited to be at this point, and we are now taking green waste in, composting it, and we're talking about how are we helping the circular economy. We're actually putting it back into the community. So
when you put it back in the community, how much do they have to pay for that compost?
Well, it is at the low price of free. So we're actually giving it back to the residents and businesses. We actually have our compost, at least within the county, so people know that they have access to it. This is the challenge, is getting the word out so people understand what they have access to. It's not just compost, right? It is an STA certified compost through the U.S. Compost Council. And what that means, it's seal of testing assurance. And so it goes through an entire process in which we guarantee that it has a good quality and a good standard that will benefit the residents and businesses for use. We also have it registered with the California Department of Food and Agriculture. So we have our product also registered there. We have it in bags. You can get it in bulk. And we also provide compost wattles for public works projects. And those have all been provided for free as well. And so to date, there's some statistics. We've actually provided over 5 miles of compost wattles just this year alone for public works projects for the county and various cities that have taken, the opportunity to use it for their stormwater quality management, as well as in some areas where they've had burn scars to help remediate or at least prepare for wet weather.
So thanks for that. And for our listeners, so wattles are like long tubular elements filled with these materials that keep runoff or pollutants from getting in the storm drains or erosion down the hillside. I wanted to talk to you just quickly about diversion, because you're talking about the things that happen once stuff gets to the landfill, but the diversion piece, what does that mean for the general public? What's diversion? How does that happen?
Yeah. So in the waste and recycling industry, diversion is actually, the intent is to actually keep material out of being buried at the landfill. That is the strict requirement of diversion. And so it's meant to actually take the material that would normally be buried, such as the organics that were coming in, and being able to find a market or at least another location where it can be put to beneficial reuse. And so traditionally, we have traditional recycling streams that happen today for businesses and residents that are required. So they put all the recycling materials into a container. It goes back to our material recoveries facility. That material gets sorted out, such as the papers, plastics, metals, glass, and will then find its way to market. It'll go into bales, shipped off in shipping containers to, let's say, a processing center to get reused and reintroduced into products. So for organics, this is a little unique when we talk about diversion. We not only have diverged green waste, right? Now there's food waste, manure, which we also can compost and make a product with. But the goal is to, when we say divert, is to keep it, number one, out of the landfill from being buried. Number two, to find a home for it, right? And so when you take compost or mulch and you apply it to your soil, there is, that's the ultimate location, right? To put that organic material back into the soil to help with the sequestration of water, right? We've had these conversations with our watershed people that are working on stormwater quality management. For landscape projects, there is a MWELO, which is the Model Water Efficiency Landscape Ordinance that's required, where there's a use of compost and mulch that goes back into those projects. And so the goal is to create markets and find markets for this material to go into. And that's something that we have worked on at the county to help provide education and outreach so people understand number one, what's available to them as far as their compost and mulch, but number two, how to apply it. Because under SB 1383, there is a procurement requirement for every city and every jurisdiction. So when we talk about requirements in the legislation with SB 1383, there are, I'll say, if you do not get compliance, you could get fined, right? There are actual teeth to this like regulation and legislation that require cities to procure back a certain amount. But
so real quick, sorry, Tom, on SB. So as we move on to SB 1383, you said passed in 2016, because you defined diversion's part of that, and it was 75%.
Yeah, 75% organics by 2025.
So
sure. The state's goal this year was to hit diversion by 2025. And so, spoiler alert, it didn't happen for the state. However, jurisdictions are still being held to those requirements. I'll say for OC waste and recycling for the county, we have met, we met compliance with our entire, requirements under SB 1383. Not only for, programs in place, but also our procurement requirements to divert organics from the landfill.
Okay, great. So thank you for that. I always thought it was pretty complicated to work through that, but it can be very simple. Okay, 75% right now, but getting to that point is a challenge, obviously. What have some of the biggest challenges been? You outlined a lot of what's happening, but what have some of the, from your perspective, and work with your colleagues in the industry with implementation, rolling out that from a collection, processing, compliance standpoint?
I'll say some of the biggest challenges, I'm going to take a step back here. Some of the biggest challenges fall within permitting. I'll say
For regulatory
from
compliance.
regulatory compliance and permitting to get infrastructure in place. That's for us, that's probably been the biggest challenge. The second biggest challenge, education and outreach, getting people to participate and understand what's required of them. And so for us, education and outreach has been part of the biggest challenge. Working with I'll say the haulers, right? We meet monthly and quarterly with the haulers. The cities have recycling coordinators that represent their cities, and everybody at a different level in trying to get these programs implemented. But we have a lot of really good people out there working hard in the cities and with the haulers trying to get these programs implemented. Part of the challenge is changing people's behavior. And so getting them to participate. And so that means using the proper container and placing the proper material in that container. It sounds simple. It may sound simple to us, right? But you have competing priorities, right? Within individual homes, you have this myth that's out there, and I have this conversation with individuals quite a bit that they ask, are things really getting recycled, right? This is the big question that I get. I just had a chat last week with a group about it, and I can tell you that, yes, things are getting recycled. Today, the industry is in this dynamic, it's a renaissance time for us, right? We're in this change, and you have pressures to divert material. You have markets, recycling markets that are changing, specifically related to plastics. There are 7 plastics, right? And of the 7 plastics, they're the markets that used to exist to take, let's say, 1 through 7, plastics 1, 2, and 5 are the 3 plastics that have markets that are being recycled. The other challenges are with field plastics. As a result of that, California is working on legislation such as SB 54, which is basically legislation to help change the way plastics are produced and manufactured and used in the state of California. Meaning that some of these plastics are going to have to be compostable. And so it's going to be an entire change in the waste stream as it relates to what the consumer can then get and the programs that will be available for them to make sure that they place the proper material in the right container.
So on that, and you're obviously an expert in this, Tom. So in our communities, at least where I'm at, we have 3 containers, right? We have a blue one for recycling.
Yep.
We have another one for landfills, general waste, and then we have organics, right? And so some conspiracy theorists say, well, it all just goes into one and nothing really happens. But you're here today to say those actually get treated separately.
They get treated separately.
Good.
And they do get treated separately. Number one, they have to, because the haulers are required to do it. The cities are required to do it. And there are reports. This is all public information. All these reports filter up to the state, right? And so if you're not generating the report for the state and it's not showing that you're hitting your diversion numbers, the state does their inspection, right? We got our inspection by the state. Cal Recycle oversees it all. And they come in with an enforcement measure. They will come in, inspect. And if you're not doing what you say you're doing, there are fines associated with that. And under not only AB 93, the legislation that's in place since 1990, but also under SB 1383, these pieces of legislation have teeth that will fine jurisdictions for them being out of compliance, $10,000 a day for every day that they're out of compliance. So they're incentivized to make sure that the haulers are collecting the material the way they should and making sure that they're going to the prospective facilities. Landfills for Orange County is pretty simple. There's 3 active landfills. All the waste in the county of Orange comes to our landfills. Green waste, the organics, has its own facility. Some of it comes to us, some of it goes elsewhere, right? For the recycling, there are material recovery facilities, MRFs, that they go through, that they have to sort out that material and divert it from the landfill. Yes, some of the contaminants in that recycling material then get brought back to the landfill. And that's when we talk about people's participation, making sure that they're putting the proper material in the right container. So it is happening.
So it's happening, and it's complicated.
It is.
Even though we're talking trash, there's a lot more to it. Again, you're the expert. Do you have any advice for other communities, either across the state or the country, that maybe they don't have the same regulatory elements, but they want to take a sustainable approach? Lessons learned from you about, hey, if you're going to launch into this, think about these three things?
All right. I think I'll say within the state of California, right? Part of the problem I think we have is we try to live in a silo. I think there's a big benefit in collaboration and working together across jurisdictions, not only to help identify programs, create standardized communication for that, right? Because you have people that live in different jurisdictions and cities that are relative, right? They talk, they share information, and they say, hey, are you guys having to do this? And they say, we don't have to do that, right? But wait, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. And so I think collaboration, being able to collaborate and reach across the aisle and say, hey, we're looking at doing this. Where are you? Sharing ideas and information, I think, is extremely important. Education and outreach to the public, very big. I used to think, and by the way, I didn't think that all the time. I used to think, we just build the infrastructure, manage the material, it'll be fine. I was so wrong, and have learned a lot because the education and outreach to get people to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how they can participate, I think is extremely important. And so really that education and outreach is probably the biggest component you can do to get a program started.
Yeah, education outreach. So for example, we've got 3.2 million people in Orange County. In each household, they need to be the first nexus for making those decisions to help with the compliance and all the things that have to happen at the landfills.
Yes.
Crazy.
And I'll just say this, our efforts within the county for education and outreach not only goes to the household, right, but we try to get to schools. We actually participate with the Orange County Department of Education. I got to give my team kudos for this. It was about 5 years ago, we had our first contract where we went in to provide, I'll say, a teacher developed curriculum, right? So the curriculum was actually meeting state standards developed by the teachers to be used in the classroom. It's the first time we'd ever done anything like this. And this was really to try and get into the elementary schools to help provide that education and outreach, because we know if it goes into the classroom, it will make it all the way also back into the house. So that's been helpful. And over the past 5 years, the program's grown. It started off with, I'll say, elementary school. Right now, we are getting into middle school and high school with education and outreach to talk about why are we doing this, what's the benefit, and how can you participate.
Interesting. So as elementary school students are going through their curriculums or whatever, when they get maybe to biology or science or something, there's prepared now information that the teacher can use to say, okay, we're going to talk about what goes in your trash and diversion and what happens. Okay, that's great. And it starts with people. So that's awesome. You talked about community partnerships a little bit, but on the funding and partnership side, we talked about your funding as an enterprise fund, but we're partnering with the private sector. So we talked about the community, the people, but from the people to the landfill, we have waste haulers.
Yes.
Right. So can you talk a little bit about the partnership, that piece?
Yes. So how it works is they're franchise. Well, they are the service providers for the community. So much like the county and the rest of the cities within the county, 34 cities in the county, they have what are called franchise agreements in place for waste collection, right? They collect the waste, recycling, organic to make sure they get to the proper location. That also includes rolling out programs as well. And so they are the intermediary between the household and the business to either the landfill, the compost facility, or the material recovery facilities. And so, and some of these haulers they're the ones that own and operate the material recovery facilities for recyclables. And so a lot of times all those recyclables will either go back to their facility or they may have a contracted facility that they take it to. Just like with organics, they may own their own facility or they may bring it to a contracted facility. But for waste, all the waste in the county comes into the landfill system.
Yeah. Another partnership, I think, is with not only the residents in the community, but the communities themselves. Would you just quickly cover, we're at the Frank R. Bowerman landfill today. Thank you for your hospitality today. We did a nice tour and we'll try to share some of that video, but this is only one of your facilities.
Yeah.
So you have partnerships across the county and other areas. Just want to quickly highlight those other facilities.
So we have actually 3 active landfills. And by the way, for businesses and residents in the county, you can come to our facilities and I'll say get a tour, get to see what happens with the waste in the county, how it's managed, and understand, I'll say, the science behind it, right? We are highly regulated, highly engineered, and we manage waste in place, meaning we collect landfill gas, we can create renewable energy, but also we provide that for education and outreach, but we provide free compost and mulch. And so that's one way that we partner with the community is we provide them with material that they can take back and that I'll say is generated locally. We process it, create a product, and it goes back into the local community. And so
And your other sites,
Our-
the names of those.
we're at the Frank R. Bowerman Landfill in Irvine, and we have the Bee Canyon Greenery here. We have another location in San Juan Capistrano at the Prima de Sencha Landfill, where our Capistrano Greenery is located. And then we also have a facility in the city of Brea at the Olinda Alpha Landfill, and we have the Valencia Greenery located at that facility.
Great. Thank you for that. So we covered a little bit about your past, how you got to this spot. We've been focusing on kind of what's happening now, both in the organization, with the county, and with legislation at the state level. I wanted to try to ask you to look ahead a little bit to the future of the industry. Which innovations in waste management excite you the most or concern you the most for the future of Orange County and your operations?
Well, I'll say there's quite a few, but I'm going to start off with something that we're working on right now. It's the use of best available technology and creating efficiencies in how we do things. So we're, I'll say here, actually using drones and I'll say technology that didn't exist 30 years ago to actually manage and increase efficiencies on landfill gas collection and landfill management. So we're actually using drones to do inspections and oversee the site. I think that that's one exciting thing, sort of the advancement of technology and the application of it within our own operations. From a diversion standpoint, we have the opportunity to increase organics recycling diversion. We're actually having conversations with the wastewater treatment agencies on co-digestion and further diverting more material from the landfill. And then I think, if I look down the line, what's going to have to happen is eventually solid waste processing, where we're actually start to pull out more material out of the waste stream for diversion, because the landfill model is to fill up and close. So it's a finite business model. So diversion, those efforts actually help extend the life of the landfill. It's a valuable resource, but it's a finite resource.
And because it's a finite resource, the diversion component you mentioned is so important, because if you didn't have diversion, you would just be building landfills all over, just fill up, right? And so then that's why the importance of the education outreach, to make sure that people at their homes are trying to separate and do those things well. Do you see waste to energy or any other advanced recycling technologies becoming part or a greater part of the county system? For example, you have a facility here that.
Yeah, I'll say waste to energy. So we do convert landfill gas, which is a combination of CO2 and methane, right? So we take that and we create energy and we put it out on the grid. Right now we're working on projects to take landfill gas and convert it to renewable natural gas and put that on the grid. When we talk about waste to energy, there's technologies that exist today that are in operations, I'll say outside of the US, some within the US in the pilot stages. So I do see advances happening where we could be able to take our waste stream and process it in such a way that we create products, right? Such as synthetic oils, graphite, activated carbon, right? So they're technologies that exist today that are in operations. I'll say the challenge we have in California, permitting, right? And legislation. So in some of the regulations do not allow for it. And so what we're also trying to do is help CalRecycle, AQMD, CARB, the Water Board understand the benefits of putting these technologies in place and how it helps achieve the goal of not only diversion from the landfill, but it could create products to go back into the markets, right? So we talk about circularity, being able to take a waste stream, convert it into something that could be reused in manufacturing. I think this is a great opportunity that the industry has. And again, it's a renaissance time for us. It's from the state of change. And I see that as definitely part of the future in California. It's just where we have to work with the right individuals that will allow us to do it. And I believe it's very possible.
Oh, that's great. And as we wrap up, like your facilities and operations and all that, do you think there's one thing that, as an example, you're setting an example in the industry where landfills from across the country, landfill operators or people in the state, if they came here, you'd say, this is what we do better than anybody else, other than having Tom Petroulis.
I would say that.
Yeah.
But what I would say is we have an incredible team, right? Our team works, makes the dream work. And so one of the things that we're doing and they're doing it elsewhere, but one of the things that we're doing and hyper focused on is really the use of best available technology, automation of some of the things that we are doing. We've tested out various technologies today that are actually being used to help manage our landfill system that aren't required regulatorily. However, we see a benefit overall long term. And I think that's when we do have quite a bit of tours and people coming to see what we do. Historically, I'll say this facility specifically, FRB or Frank R. Baumann Landfill, has helped set the standard really not only for the state, but for the rest of the nation back in 1990 when it was open. And so the county, this facility does have, I'll say, that history. And what we're trying to do is we're standing on the shoulders of the giants that went before us and trying to carry that forward with the best use of available technology.
It's great. Yeah. So come visit the landfill. That's what I hear. Come see Tom.
Come
see his
on out.
team.
It's free. You'll be educated. And I promise you'll go away with a pocket full of compost and mulch. And you'll be able to talk trash better than anyone else.
And talk trash in a positive way. So that's
right.
great. As we wrap up, Tom, anything that we didn't cover for our listeners, you think it's important? We delved into a lot of different things. What do you think for a final word on this?
You know, safety is near and dear to our hearts, right? We are, again, a high hazard industry, right? So one of the things we haven't touched on, and this is, I'll give kudos to my team. We just received our ISO certification, 14001 certification for our environmental management system. Again, kudos to the team. And we're currently working on our Cal OSHA certification for VPP, which is the Voluntary Protection Program. And so, you know, a few of the things that, you know, we do, it is a challenging and dangerous industry, right? But if you have the right skill set, you have the right people, you can mitigate that. And so one of the things that we've been able to do is establish a culture around safety that is actually, we're working on getting that certification through Cal OSHA to really, I say, seal the deal with our team and obviously our frontline leaders that are making it happen every day.
That's great. Yeah, safety. I saw that firsthand. Thank you for the tour today of the landfill operations. I had my personal protective equipment on, as did you and your team. So I think that was great. I really appreciate you sharing those with us. So, Tom, thank you again for taking time today and telling us about how Orange County Waste Recycling is tackling sustainability, technology, forging partnerships, trying to educate in such a critical sector. Your leadership and perspective give us a better understanding of how public agencies can drive meaningful change in waste management and general operations for a government agency. For our listeners, thank you for joining the Public Works Podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe and review the show on your favorite podcast platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify. To learn more about Orange County's waste recycling programs, you can visit landfills.com. And for more episodes on topics like this affecting infrastructure in the public works industry, you can go to thepublicworkspodcast.com or follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn. We also are going to try to share some videos from our tours today that if you stick around after this, you'll be able to see and hear about the experts from Tom and his team. Until next time, I'm Shane Silsby. And remember, public works is the work that is connecting our communities and keeping them running smooth. Thanks so much.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is David Tu, and I am the Deputy Director for the Frank R. Baumann Landfill with OC Waste and Recycling.
Hello, I'm Tom Petroulis, the Director for OC Waste and Recycling.
So we are located at the Frank R. Baumann Landfill, and behind us is Ridgeline. This is part of our landfill, and to be able to develop the landfill, we have to do a lot of geotechnical investigation. This is right here is a former landslide that has actually been moving over the last few years, and we have to stabilize it. And so part of what we do is to remove all the dirt. To be able to remove that moving soil, we also put in some horizontal drains to lower the groundwater table. We do that to be able to stabilize the landslide so that in the future we can develop it and place trash.
All right, so we are here at the Bee Canyon Greenery, and with David Tu, Deputy Director, and I'll say the lead for the entire county for all things organic. And so, as David was just reminding me, this is the anniversary, the 5-year anniversary of the Bee Canyon Greenery. And what we're looking at here from the piles down here, this used to be green waste that was coming in covering landfills waste at the end of the day. We have built a facility to address the lack of infrastructure for SB 1383 and have taken that green waste, put it out here, manage Mother Nature to create a product. And what you're looking at here are the open windrows, sort of as we manage Mother Nature, monitoring temperatures, moisture content, turning them, and letting the biological natural reaction happen and managing that. As it reaches its mature stages for screening, it then goes up to our facility over here where we have a screener that will then take the material, sort out the composted materials, the smaller products, the larger overs, and then in the end we come up with a final material for compost and composted mulch. And we actually have STA certification through the U.S. Compost Council, and that stands for Seal of Testing Assurance. We also have the material registered with the California Department of Food and Agriculture for Compost A and Compost B. And so what we've been able to do here is put in local infrastructure to handle waste that previously was being buried and now creating a product. And so we're very proud of our facility here. This is the flagship for the county. And we have 2 other facilities in operations as well, one in San Juan Capistrano at the Capistrano Greenery, and one in the city of Brea at the Olinda Alpha Landfill called the Valencia Greenery. And all 3 facilities are up and running and full operations.
One of the best things about our greeneries is that we produce a compost and mulch product, right? And it's actually available for all residents and all businesses to be able to come up free of charge. And so they can go onto our website at oclandfills.com and they can pick up time to be able to pick up that material free from one of our 3 composting facilities. And so for anyone who's out there, you know, get in contact with us and get some free mulch and compost.
Yeah, it's also being used in many of the public works projects that we have going on. We provide it to all the cities for free in wattles and in bulk. And so not only for projects that they have going on, but to also manage stormwater. So like David said, it's at the low price of free. So take advantage of it. So David, this being the anniversary of the Bee Canyon Greenery, what is it that you've enjoyed the most about this process?
Well, I think it's been an incredible transformation. As you had mentioned, before it was strictly just landfilling, it was open space. And so now to be able to take all that organic material that was going into the landfills and to repurpose it, right? To be able to take that material and then instead of being sent to the landfill where it's generating landfill gas and methane gas, we're able to repurpose it and then put it back into the community. And so what's really been enjoyable is that it's been a collective effort from the department, from all the employees. And so it's been a transition, it's been a revolution within our industry, and really glad to be part of it.
Fantastic. So what's happening now is we have trucks coming in with waste to be buried at the landfill. So every day, the waste is collected in the county. It comes here, it gets onto the deck. It is then spread and compacted at the site and then covered at the end of the day to ensure that we can, as the waste degrades and creates landfill gas, which has methane in it, we collect it and create renewable energy with it. This is the process that happens every day. Regarding the specifics of the site, how much tonnage comes in?
Yeah,
what's the capacity?
So the Frank R. Brown landfill, we are permitted to accept 11,500 tons of trash per day. This facility opened in 1990 and has enough capacity to stay open through 2053. We serve the communities of Orange County, about 3.2 million residents.
Okay, what we're looking at over here is the landfill gas to energy plant. It is run by our partner, Montauk BP. What we're responsible for is collecting all the landfill gas on site and destroying it in a flare. But what we're doing is we're taking the landfill gas, putting it through this facility and creating renewable energy and putting it out on the grid.
So that was Tom Katroulis and his team at Orange County Waste and Recycling. They did a great job today explaining many elements of how landfills work, including tours of the facilities where we got to see hands-on what's happening out in the field. They also took care of me with some goodie bags to promote what's happening for Orange County Waste and Recycling with their greeneries. And part of what we talked about was education. And so they showed me what they're rolling out for some folks at the elementary school level and then beyond. They also provided me with some backup information on composting and how that works and how you can get your free mulch from Orange County Waste Recycling. And then finally, they gave me this handy kind of placemat, which talks about the anatomy of a landfill and how to make sure that you're putting your right containers in the right bins. So that was cool. We appreciate that. Thanks to Tom and his team. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the Public Works Podcast. Please follow, like, subscribe on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Spotify, and send a note if you or somebody you know thinks they should be a guest on the show, and we'll try to get them on. Thanks again for letting us advocate for the public works industry and infrastructure overall. And again, I'm your host, Shane Silsby. Have a great day.